This was supposed to be easy, a soft landing. One of those television moments that barely leaves a ripple, where everyone smiles, lights stay warm, the audience laughs on cue, and by morning it's already forgotten. It looked harmless enough. Friendly lighting, relaxed host, polite laughter arriving exactly when it was expected. On the surface, nothing felt wrong. It was the kind of appearance designed to pass quietly through the news cycle, the kind that fades before anyone even thinks to question it. But something was already off. Not loud, not obvious, just a subtle tension sitting under the smiles, the kind you don't notice until it's too late. From inside that studio, it probably felt safe, controlled, familiar, like a room where nothing could go wrong. And then Harry tried to be funny. It wasn't sharp, it wasn't daring, it wasn't spontaneous. It landed in that strange space where laughter arrives just a second too late, where the sound feels polite instead of genuine, rehearsed instead of natural. The kind of laughter that exists only because cameras are rolling and people know what they're supposed to do. That laugh doesn't exist outside a studio. It evaporates the second the lights go down. On television, it looked fine. Outside that room, it felt wrong. And that's the detail that matters most. The problem wasn't the joke itself. It was who was telling it. Harry wasn't there as a comedian. He wasn't a satirist. He wasn't a late-night regular raised inside American political culture. And no matter how much distance he tries to put between himself, his past, he didn't walk onto that stage as just another celebrity. He walked in carrying a title, a history, and a family that comes with weight whether he likes it or not. It wasn't appropriate. Not because the joke was offensive, but because of the optics. The son of the King of the United Kingdom casually attacking the US president doesn't land as humor. It lands as miscalculation. And Donald Trump didn't respond. No counterpunch. No headline-grabbing clapback. No immediate reaction at all. Just silence. That silence did more damage than any insult ever could. It stripped the moment of energy. It exposed it. Harry seemed to think it worked, but once the clip escaped the studio bubble, the temperature changed fast. The laughter faded. The second-hand embarrassment crept in. People didn't rewatch it for entertainment anymore. They rewatched it because something felt off. Not confident, not cheeky, just awkward, like someone trying to punch above their understanding of the room and missing badly. He looked out of his depth. In a room he didn't truly understand, speaking to people whose instincts he didn't share, occupying a space he didn't naturally belong in. And that was the first real shift, because suddenly this wasn't just a joke anymore. It was a crack, a visible one. What followed wasn't outrage. There was no explosion, no mass backlash, just something far more dangerous. Recognition. People weren't offended. They understood. They immediately grasped what Harry had missed. This wasn't satire. It wasn't stand-up. It wasn't even political commentary delivered with authority. It felt borrowed, like someone wearing a tone that wasn't theirs and hoping nobody noticed. And once that realization sets in, there's no undoing it. Harry isn't an American comic. He isn't a late-night veteran who knows how far to push before pulling back. And he isn't just another celebrity throwing out a casual joke. His identity changes how words land, whether he resents it or not. That's why the joke didn't feel playful. It felt smug. Commentary delivered from above the consequences. Audiences don't argue with that posture. They reject it. And Donald Trump understands that instinctively. He understands timing. He understands attention. And most importantly, he understands when silence does more damage than engagement. While the clip spread, Trump didn't rush in. He let the awkwardness sit. He let people replay it. Let it grow heavier with every rewatch. He let Harry overextend himself without lifting a finger. Because Trump doesn't need to shout to dominate a moment. He waits. He lets others collapse under their own miscalculations. And Harry did exactly that. Instead of sounding bold, he sounded unaware. Instead of sharp, he sounded rehearsed. Instead of confident, he sounded like someone performing relevance. The joke wasn't offensive. It was exposed. And exposure is fatal because once people stop arguing with you and start cringing for you, the conversation is already over. Respect doesn't vanish loudly. It slips away quietly. By the time viewers finished watching, they weren't thinking about Trump anymore. They were asking a far more dangerous question. Why did Harry think this was a good idea? That moment didn't exist in isolation. It hit hard because it fit into a pattern people had been sensing for a long time. Harry has been in constant motion, new causes, new appearances. New projects launched with big promises and soft endings, each framed as a turning point, each meant to signal relevance. But none of them stay. There was a time when his presence alone carried meaning, when he represented something larger than himself. Even rebellion once had structure. Now the reinvention feels restless, unanchored. like someone testing rooms instead of building a place of their own. That's why late-night television felt wrong. It wasn't a natural extension. It was an experiment. And public experiments are dangerous. He isn't building anymore. He's bouncing platform to platform, appearance to appearance. And when that happens in full view, it stops looking strategic and starts looking frantic. Meanwhile, the lifestyle never shrank. The security stayed expensive. The image stayed polished. The team stayed large. And that kind of life demands consistency, not bursts of attention surrounded by silence. So the strategy shifted. Less substance. More visibility. Paid speeches. Panels. Cameos. Moments designed to keep the name circulating even when there's nothing solid behind it. That's not growth. That's maintenance. That's what happens when relevance itself becomes the product. Suddenly the joke makes sense. It wasn't playful. It was necessary. It wasn't about comedy. It was about staying in the conversation. Pressure doesn't show up as empty accounts. It shows up as urgency. Rush decisions. Moments that feel forced instead of thoughtful. When security is real, you don't reach. When confidence is solid, you don't gamble on awkward humor. Trump understood that. He didn't escalate. He didn't validate the moment with outrage. He let it shrink. By the time he acknowledged it, Harry wasn't framed as a rival or a critic. He wasn't worth debating, and for someone who needs every appearance to matter, that's devastating. The conversation snapped back, not about what Harry said, but why he said it. His motives, his judgment, his desperation. That kind of damage doesn't trend for a day. It lingers. After that, everything looked different. What once seemed confident started reading as overcompensation. What looked like purpose began to feel like chasing attention. Audiences stopped listening and started analyzing. And desperation has a sound. You hear it in forced jokes, in timing that doesn't land, in energy that feels nervous instead of natural. Harry didn't slow down. He sped up. More appearances, more commentary, more attempts to stay visible as each moment carried less weight than the last. That's the dangerous phase. When relevance becomes fragile, when controversy feels tempting, when reaction replaces structure, people feel it. Sympathy dries up, interest fades, and the worst thing happens. Indifference. This was never about one joke. It was about erosion, repetition, contradiction. This moment didn't create a crisis, it confirmed one. By the end, viewers weren't angry. They were unmoved. And indifference is deadly because you can survive criticism. You cannot survive being dismissed. And that may be the most dangerous place Prince Harry has ever landed. And once indifference sets in, there's no dramatic sound when it arrives. No explosion. No scandal headline big enough to shake the ground. It just settles quietly, permanently. That's the part people underestimate, because outrage still means you matter. Being mocked still means you matter. Being ignored is something else entirely. After that moment, the air around Harry changed. You could feel it. Every appearance after carried a strange heaviness, like the audience had already made up its mind before he even spoke. What used to feel like curiosity turned into evaluation. People weren't leaning in anymore, they were leaning back, watching, measuring, waiting for the misstep instead of the message. And that's brutal for someone who needs momentum, because Harry's life now depends on motion. He can't disappear. He can't retreat quietly. Silence would only confirm what people are already whispering. So he keeps moving, keeps talking, keeps stepping into rooms that don't quite fit, hoping one of them finally feels right again. But the problem is this. When you're searching the openly, the audience can sense it. They hear it in the urgency. They see it in the choices. They feel it in the way moments are forced instead of organic. Relevance can't be chased without cost. Every attempt chips away at what little mystery remains. And mystery was once his greatest asset. There was a time when Harry didn't need to explain himself, when the title alone created gravity, when people filled in the blanks for him with generosity. But generosity has a limit, and when it runs out, everything that follows is judged more harshly than before. That's why even neutral appearances started to feel loaded. A panel here, a speech there, a joke meant to land lightly, but instead landing with a thud. Each moment adding to a growing sense that he was no longer steering the narrative, just reacting to it. What makes this especially uncomfortable is that none of it feels intentional anymore. It doesn't feel like a long game. It feels like survival. Like someone trying to stay afloat by splashing harder, instead of slowing down and finding balance. And audiences don't reward that. They recoil from it. Because when someone keeps insisting they're important, it creates the opposite effect. Importance is felt, not declared. It arrives naturally when substance leads and noise follows. Here, the noise came first. The substance struggled to keep up. That late-night moment crystallized something people had been sensing but hadn't quite named yet. Harry wasn't expanding into a new role. He was shrinking inside the old one, still carrying the title while insisting it didn't define him, still benefiting from the legacy while rejecting the responsibility that gave it meaning. That contradiction is exhausting to watch, and exhaustion breeds apathy. Once the spell breaks, everything afterward is filtered through suspicion. Is this appearance meaningful, or is it filler? Is this message sincere, or is it strategic? Is this joke confidence, or is it deflection? Fair or not, those questions now hover over everything he does. And he knows it. That's the part that leaks through most clearly, not arrogance. Anxiety. The awareness that the window is narrowing, that each moment matters more than the last, because there may not be many left where people are still listening at all. That's why slowing down feels impossible. Because slowing down risks being forgotten, and being forgotten would be the final confirmation that the reinvention failed. So he keeps going, keeps showing up, keeps talking, keeps filling silence that might have once worked in his favor. But the truth is, silence is powerful only when you're confident it won't erase you. And confidence like that can be faked. This isn't a downfall marked by scandal. It's something far quieter and far more unforgiving. It's the slow realization that the room has moved on, that attention has shifted elsewhere, that the story people were once eager to follow no longer feels essential. And once that happens, no amount of appearances can bring it back, because relevance isn't something you announce. It's something others decide to grant you. And the most painful part of all of this is that decision isn't made loudly. It's made in private, in moments where people choose not to click, not to watch, not to care. That late-night joke didn't end anything on its own. It simply revealed how close the end already was, how thin the margin had become, how little room there was left for error. And when the margin disappears, even harmless moments feel risky, even silence feels dangerous, even jokes feel like gambles. That's the position Harry is in now. Not disgraced, not destroyed, just exposed, standing in the open without the armor that once protected him. Still moving, still speaking, still trying. But trying is no longer enough when the audience has already started to drift away. And that may be the hardest reality to face of all.